Test, 1, 2, test. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. This is Creole with Untwisting the Game Crypto. Here on this channel, we cover all things Bitcoin, all things Cardano, all things Polkadot. I'm sorry my lives have been kind of dodgy recently. I've been traveling and working quite a bit the past couple of weeks, but I do plan to catch up accordingly the rest of the month as we close quarter 2 2020. Thank you for joining us today. Just wanted to take a moment this Saturday afternoon to cover a piece of news that wasn't widely covered in the mainstream media the past couple of weeks, of Russia announcing their intentions of dropping the US dollar from their sovereign wealth fund. Which this is big news. And then towards the end of the video, I will tie it in to help explain in greater detail why Bitcoin matters. Give me a moment, I'm just going to check my levels. Test, 1, 2, test. Okay, we're looking good here. And leave a comment below if I need to turn the music down or turn my mic up. So let's get started with this article. Again, I've kind of been out of pocket the past couple of weeks with updating the community on relevant and important news when it comes to cryptocurrency. But this is one that I definitely want to highlight to you all out there listening to me. Again, this piece of news was released towards the beginning of June, but I wanted to cover it. The title of this particular article is Russia Drops the US Dollar. The end of the US dollar hegemony over the world is getting closer. And, this has been predicted by Bitcoin scholars, Bitcoin enthusiasts, and deep thinkers, all the way back to Andreas Antonopoulos. And I encourage my listeners to go back and listen to his YouTube videos and read his books. He predicted the different phases of Bitcoin adoption. And one of the last phases is governments adopting Bitcoin. And we're starting to see this struggle begin. And it begins with people in countries dropping the US dollar as world reserve currency. So let's jump into the article here. More and more countries will seek to exit the US dollar system in the coming years. At the beginning of June 2021, we have just learned very interesting news in terms of geopolitics and the world economy. Russia has just dropped the US dollar. The Russian Minister of Finance has just declared that the National Well-Being Fund, its oil fund, will completely divest from its exposure to the US dollar, which still amounts to $40 billion. So what is the National Well-Being Fund? It's a national wealth fund. It's Russia's sovereign wealth fund. These sovereign wealth funds are state-owned investments and funds, and they invest countries' money into real and financial assets such as stocks, bonds, real estate, precious metals, and other alternative assets such as hedge funds. Continuing on here, Russia's plan is now to move into the Chinese yuan, the euro, but also gold. There's a quote here from the Russian Minister of Finance. Today we have about 35% of NWF investment in dollars, we've decided to get out of the dollar asset completely, replacing investments in dollars with an increase in euros and gold. Now, as a reminder, Russia's National Well-Being Fund has an approximate size of $120 billion, so the decision taken by Russia is therefore significant from an economic point of view, but also a geopolitical point of view. And we've seen this the past couple of American administrations in the White House, butted heads with Russia, and we've seen Russia kind of cozy up to China. And we're going to continue to see that in the near term and in the future. Continuing on, Russia has been aiming to disengage from the US dollar for over a decade. This announcement by Russia is not surprising. Those who have been following international politics for several years now will probably remember the warning issued in 2009 by the then Russian president Dmitry Medvedev about Russia relying on the US dollar. And I encourage you to go back and learn a little history about Russia during that time. Putin actually served 2 terms. There's a max of 2 terms as president in Russia. So on his 3rd term, what he decided to do was nominate his protege, Dmitry, and Dmitry was elected president in 2008. And what Dmitry did, he immediately appointed Putin as the prime minister. And if you study politics during that time, it was obvious that Putin was still running the country, and Russia continued Putin's politics during that time. And after Dmitry's first term, Putin was reelected for a 3rd term in 2012. So it's a very interesting history there. Putin is a master politician. He stayed in power for quite some time. Moving on here, Dmitry's comments were largely centered around the global financial crisis that the world was experiencing at the time, and the belief that the United States was far more responsible for the situation than many were willing to admit publicly. At that time, Russia and China had even started to think with other countries about creating a supranational currency to supplement the US dollar. This idea has since been abandoned, but it is amusing to note that Satoshi Nakamoto implemented this worldwide supranational currency by creating Bitcoin and launched it on January 3rd of 2009. Now, Russia has other goals in mind. The country led by Vladimir Putin wants to protect itself from the risk of American economic sanctions, but also from the future pressure that the United States can exert on its economy. And one thing we see with international politics is every 4 years in America, of course, there's a new president elected. So international policies can swing widely from term to term to administration to administration. So we're seeing these countries around the world really take a look at America's stranglehold on the world financial institution because, our politicians say that Bitcoin is volatile, but American politics is very volatile, especially when you're looking at Russia, who has had Putin installed as in power for quite some time. Same thing in China there with President Xi. They have long-term 100-year goals for their countries, and America tends to be unstable in their international policies. Moving on, Russia wants to better protect itself from American supremacy in the financial world. Russia is therefore leaving a hegemonic currency and moving towards the Chinese yuan and the euro, whose central bankers will potentially be more favorable, or rather much less unfavorable. Transforming this American dollar into the Chinese yuan will also allow Russia to strengthen its major strategic alliance with Beijing. In addition to the Chinese yuan and the euro, Russia is also adding the purchase of gold to its National Well-Being Fund reserves. This decision is even less risky since it is known that the gold is a reserve of value recognized for centuries. Again, as we see America and central banks across the world, specifically the US dollar and the euro, printing more and more currency, it's devaluing the world financial currencies throughout the world, and it has ripples effects throughout many different countries and governments. So if Russia really wants to protect itself from the risks of American sanctions, it will necessarily have to turn to the purchase of physical gold. The complexity will be greater than exposure to gold via financial products, and the fees will be higher, but Russia will be much better protected from the risks that America poses to the whole world with its American dollar and the excessive money printing now. A couple of sections here I did want to continue to cover. The next one being the systemic use of the U.S. dollar as a weapon is what will cause the fall of its hegemonic status in the next 20 years. I personally think it will be a little bit less than 20 years, but this author is being conservative with his estimate. Moving forward here, because that is where the problem lies, in my opinion, says the author of this particular article. The U.S. dollar has been the world's reserve currency for a little over 100 years, but the real problem is that America is using its currency as a weapon to establish domination over the world. And we see that time and time again. We see it in Iran, we see it in Iraq, we see it in other Middle Eastern countries. And if you're not playing ball with the United States, we're going to hurt you with the power of our reserve currency and sanction your governments. Moving on, the United States can afford to do this because it controls the world's reserve currency. More and more countries are no longer willing to accept this injustice. They are thinking about the best way to get out of the U.S. dollar system. Getting out of the U.S. dollar system is a complex matter, but it is possible, as Russia has shown. Over the next 20 years, it seems increasingly likely that the pressure of the U.S. dollar will increase. China has a vested interest in ensuring that the U.S. dollar does not remain the world's reserve currency. Beijing understands that it will be impossible to become the world's leading superpower as long as America dominates the global monetary and financial system. The author makes a really good, solid point here. And Michelle and I discussed this back and forth quite a bit, is that, money is power. And this is why America and the United States and the governments within the Western countries have kind of moved slowly in adopting cryptocurrency, because they haven't quite figured out how they can keep world power in the financial system by using Bitcoin yet. But I'm going to play some things towards the end here. But let me continue. China continues to slowly but surely disengage from America's debt. It is still heavily exposed, but the amount is decreasing year after year. For those who don't know, China owns a significant portion of America's debt. And America, last I checked, was 30 trillion? We're 30 trillion in debt right now. So China continues to work on its digital yuan project, which should allow it to take the fight to a terrain where it can have the first mover advantage. And this is really scary as an American, because the last thing we want is the China's digital currency to become the world reserve currency. There will be some issues with privacy, and there will be other issues when it comes to national security, because the government can control and see every transaction in the crypto space if we use their digital yuan. So final thoughts by the author here, and I just wanted to hit a couple of points. If this end of the U.S. dollar's hegemony over the world is confirmed in the years to come, it will not be without pain. Historically, transitions between world reserve currencies have always occurred violently. For this transition to be more peaceful, it might be time for the world to move to a neutral, apolitical currency. Which currency is that? It's Bitcoin. It's neutral, it's decentralized. No one government or agency or corporation owns Bitcoin, and it's apolitical. Leaderless hard money that truly belongs to the people. You probably understand that I meant Bitcoin, which meets all these criteria. We will see what happens in the future and whether Bitcoin will be able to meet this challenge of establishing a new global reserve currency peacefully. Whatever happens, the domination of the US dollar over the world looks set to end in decades to come. And this kind of brings me, I'm going to wrap up here to the last point I wanted to make. We're in very uncertain times here. Obviously, the United States government is behind the eight ball when it comes to developing, regulating, and any type of cryptocurrency. Without a doubt, cryptocurrency will be the currency used in the future. And this brings along game theory. So game theory is a little bit deeper insight into what's going to happen in the future with Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies. Obviously, central bankers around the world have already admitted that they are developing their own digital central bank digital currency. So, where does this bring us? I wanted to play a little clip here from Bitcoin Miami 2021. It was a really good interview from Senator Cynthia Loomis and also a congressman from Ohio, Congressman Davidson. I'm going to play a little clip here. They were presented a question of what are you going to do to protect Bitcoin from over-regulation? And let me just play this clip and then we will discuss my final thoughts here.
Okay. Senator Loomis and Congressman Davidson, what are you guys going to do to protect the people in this room from overregulation? What are you guys going to do to protect this industry from overregulation?
Go ahead.
Well, I'm a Republican, not an anarchist, right? So some of the people in the room are probably rooting for the anarchists to win and for us to do nothing. But look, at the end of the year, if you think about it, Secretary Mnuchin was talking about banning private wallets, right? That's a horrible approach. If we don't protect private wallets, someone's going to try to ban them. If we don't try to fix our privacy laws, I wish, as I said, I'm a Republican. I wish the country would take the threat to privacy as seriously as they take the threat to the Second Amendment. Second Amendment, right to keep and bear arms. If people were as vigilant about protecting privacy...
That's true.
Thank you. We'd be in great shape.
So I'm greeted in the Senate with a look of disbelief. Why would I want to talk about Bitcoin? People would just ask, what is Bitcoin? And I try to refer them to books. We're trying to create a financial innovation caucus so we can use it to educate members of the U.S. Senate and their staffs about Bitcoin, its advantages, and why it is just such a fabulous asset to dovetail with the U.S. dollar. It can be the underlying network worldwide to keep the dollar the global reserve currency, but still allow people to transact in a very freedom-loving way, whether you're in Venezuela, where the inflation is outrageous, and you're trying to get your wealth out of the country, you can get it out through Bitcoin. And the United States, if we get to the point where we're experiencing the kind of inflation we've begun to see this year, we may want that alternative as well.
So that was very, very revealing what Senator Loomis said there. A lot of people new to the space thinks that the Bitcoin directly competes with the U.S. dollar or the euro, and that's simply not true. What I see a future of is the Bitcoin is going to be the world network, the settlement layer, and these digital currencies, these central bank digital currencies, will run on top of the Bitcoin network as private or public side chains. Why the Bitcoin network? Why not XRP? Why not Stellar? Why not Ethereum? One reason that I point to: complete decentralization and the apolitical nature of Bitcoin. Bitcoin is the only currency that is trusted from country to country, government to government, because no one individual or one corporation controls it. Bitcoin will be the fundamental settlement layer for all of these digital currencies in the future. And I know I might upset some of my other altcoin friends out there by saying this, but Bitcoin is the most secure network. There's Bitcoin satellites in space. Bitcoin is the most widely used as far as financial amount of money on the Bitcoin blockchain. And, of course we'll see, but that's my humble opinion there. And even if you look at other projects like XRP and Ripple, yes, they do have a lot of partnerships with banks around the world, but the banks aren't using XRP. And XRP and Ripple is very centralized in nature. Will China use Ripple and it's an American country? Probably not. Will Russia use Ripple and it's an American country? Probably not. Will every government across the globe trust the Bitcoin network more than any other blockchain technology out there? The answer to that is yes. But we will see. I will leave you with that. I didn't want to take up too much of your time today. Please go back and view some of our older videos, specifically on Bitcoin and the differences between altcoins. And also join our Discord channel. If you're new to the space and you have any questions, continue the conversation on the Discord. There you can access Michelle and I 24/7. We're on Discord religiously, and we've built a very organic, real community there. And of course, like and subscribe to this video. If you would like more comment about Bitcoin, Cardano, Polkadot, or any other altcoin you want us to look into, leave a comment below. And I will also leave some additional information and additional resources regarding this particular article and some history related to governments and them producing their own digital currencies. The future is among us. The next 5 to 10 years will be exciting, to say the least. And we'll be here with you every step of the way, helping you untwist this game, because you have to connect the dots here. At the end of the day, Bitcoin is king. If you're new to the space, focus on Bitcoin. And with that, I will give you the rest of your day. What happens next is up to you. The only way that the dollar keeps its world reserve currency in dominance is if they run their digital dollar on top of the Bitcoin network. Bitcoin network is going to be the most trusted blockchain, government to government, citizen to citizen. country to country.